Well, welcome back everybody. So, today we're going to look at the Evil of Frankenstein. So, without further ado, here we go. A child witnesses an intruder steal the corpse of one of her recently dead relatives. Terrified, the child flees from the cabin where she is hiding. Running through the forest, Hannah reaches out to her. The girl screams and runs away. The figure is revealed to be Baron Victor Frankenstein. Dun dun dun! The body snatcher takes the corpse to Frankenstein's secret laboratory. The Baron tells his assistant, Hans, to pay the man. When the body snatcher asks what he'll do with the body, Frankenstein says he intends to cut out the deceased man's heart, remarking, he won't be needing it. Oh boy. Meanwhile, the local priest discovers the theft and is morally outraged. The young child of the deceased who witnessed the theft identifies both the body snatcher and his employer. The priest angrily confronts each in turn, interrupts Frankenstein's attempt to restore life to the heart, smashing vital equipment in the lab. Forced to leave town because of their experiments, Frankenstein and Hans return to the Baron's hometown of Karlstad, where they plan to sell valuables from the abandoned Frankenstein chateau to fund new work. Nearing the village, the pair nearly run over a wild-haired, deaf-mute young woman who is being accosted by a couple of thugs. Hans tries to help her, but she flees to the hills. The men find a festival in progress and are able to pass through the village unquestioned. Upon their arrival, the chateau is found to have been apparently looted by the locals and the laboratory appears to be in ruins. As Hans pours the Baron a drink, Frankenstein recounts to Hans the events that led to his exile. 10 years prior, he had brought a being to life. With reasonably functional in most aspects, the creature would eat nothing but flesh, raw meat, and wantonly killed local livestock, eating their entrails. Ew. A police constable and some farmers encountered the creature with Frankenstein in the woods and shot at both of them. Frankenstein suffered a grazed arm, the monster a non-lethal head wound. Baron Frankenstein was arrested, while the creature escaped to a nearby mountain. He is seen falling into a crevice after the sound of another gunshot. Frankenstein was briefly imprisoned, charged with assault of a police officer and having committed acts of heresy. He was fined and exiled, since up to that point the creature had not caused any human harm. The flashback sequence ends with the Baron lamenting the destruction of things humanity don't understand, a theme he repeats throughout the film. The following day, the Baron and Hans enter Karlstad for a meal, donning festival masks as a precaution. They enter a crowded inn and place an order. While waiting, Frankenstein spies the corrupt burgomaster wearing one of his rings and is outraged, causing a scene which forces a hasty departure. The authorities have now recognized him, so the Baron flees with Hans through the village festival, eventually heading at his hypnotist, Zoltan's exhibit. Arrogant Zoltan clashes with the police and is arrested, covering the escape of Frankenstein and Hans. Later that evening, Frankenstein bursts into the burgomaster's apartments, again outraged at finding the corrupt official has largely stolen for himself Frankenstein's confiscated valuables. During his tirade, the police, led by the constable who had originally shot the creature, now the chief of police, breaks in to arrest the Baron. Frankenstein manages to escape. He and Hans retreat to the mountains, where they again encounter the deaf girl. She leads them to her makeshift shelter in a cave to avoid an impending storm, and soon all go to sleep. Sometime later, the waif awakens and skulks off, awakening Frankenstein. Curious, he searches through the cave and finds his original creation frozen inside a glacier. Calling Hans, they build a fire, thaw the creature out, carry it down the mountainside to the chateau, and restore it to life. However, the creature's brain, while functioning, will not respond to commands. Oh gee, I wonder what they're going to do. Frankenstein, desperate to restore active consciousness to his creation, comes up with the idea of obtaining the services of Zoltan, the hypnotist, to reanimate the creature's mind. Okay, that's different from what I thought he was going to do. Zoltan has been banished from Karlstad for not having a license to perform. After clever psychological manipulation by the Baron, he agrees to the task. Sultan is successful, but has less than scientific interest at heart. With the monster responding only to his commands, Sultan uses the creature to rob and take revenge upon the town's authorities. Frankenstein evicts Zoltan, but then instructs the creature to attack Frankenstein. He wards off the monster's attack with an oil lamp, frightening the monster. The creature in turn brutally kills Zoltan, who is blocking the creature's path. The creature quickly goes into a fit of violent rage. The Baron orders Hans to get the girl out of the room while he tries to confront its creation. In the middle of its rampage, the monster rips apart the electrical components which had been used to resurrect it, causing a fire to break out in the laboratory. Frankenstein tries to give the creature a dose of chloroform to subdue it, but it drinks it instead. Bet that sure tastes delicious. Disgusted and poisoned, the creature stumbles, knocking over bottles of flammable liquids and causing a switch to short-circuit and explode into flames. Hans asks the Baron if he can hear him, but Frankenstein orders Hans to get away from the place while he tries to shift the rubble blocking the doorway. The creature stumbles about in terror of the surrounding flames. Realizing that there is no other way out, the Baron grabs a chain and launches himself into the midst of the inferno in a desperate attempt to find another exit. From a distance, the villagers see Hans and the girl fleeing from the chateau. They look back to see black smoke pouring out from the tower where the laboratory is. Suddenly there is an explosion, and half of the tower is thrown over the edge of the cliff. Seeing this, Hans murmurs to himself that they beat you after all. The fate of Baron Frankenstein is unknown. Dun dun dun. So yeah, pretty interesting if I do say so myself. Of course I just did, so there's that. Anyway, let's look at some stuff about continuity as well as additional scenes for the movie. This film breaks continuity from the preceding film, The Revenge of Frankenstein. Dennis Meikle described the break, quote, "Any pretense of a connection to The Revenge of Frankenstein is dispensed with in a brazen display of contempt for continuity. A flashback creates a prior history that is wholly unrelated to the last Sangster script and is instead plundered from Universal's Frankenstein meets the Wolfman." Interesting. For the US television release, there were additional scenes featuring characters that didn't appear in the original film and have no interaction with the main characters. Patrick Horgan plays a reporter who questions a doctor, Stephen Jure, about Baron Frankenstein. There are also scenes of the deaf-mute girl, Tracy Stafford, and her parents, Maria Palmer and William Phipps, none of whom ever appear in the film again. So, yeah, overall this movie is pretty interesting, and it's kind of weird that it does break from continuity, but that's what some film franchises do anyway. So, overall, I give The Evil of Frankenstein 3 jack-o'-lanterns out of 5. Well, join me tomorrow as we take a look at Frankenstein Created Woman. Should be interesting, I guess. Anyway, so see you guys tomorrow. Peace.